I got started in supply chain and logistics by accident. Let me give you a little story time. I started in logistics when I was 18 years old. It was by accident. I happened to live next door to this person that was moving away to another state. They needed someone to replace them. And they talked to me about it and said, hey, would you be interested? So I had graduated high school early. So I had sort of a year off that I was taking. And I was working any kind of job I can find so I can save up as much money for college because I was eventually the goal to go to college and get a degree. So I was doing that, and this year I was working anything and everything. I worked in food, I worked in retail, I worked delivering newspaper, you name it, I did it. Fast forward, this neighbor that to this place that I had just moved into, she was moving away to another state and she needed someone to replace her current place that she was working in. And she had seen me around, so she said, hey, are you interested? And I said, you know what? Sign me up. Take me with you. I'll interview. And she worked our freight forwarder. So I had no idea what this was. I just said it's an office job. It pays decently. Let's do it. So I went in with her, I interviewed, and everything went well, but I was really honest. I said, I don't have any administrative experience. I have zero experience in what you guys do specifically. I don't have administrative experience. I've never worked in an office. I worked mostly customer service jobs, retail. People, I know how to manage people. I managed the team that I was working with at the retail place that I was working, and I remember it was a beauty supply store. That's why my love of beauty and skincare comes from, and especially Korean skincare, which I'll get to in another story time. But in particular, I worked at a Korean beauty supply at the time that I was transferring to this other job. I said, you know what, I'm gonna be a hard worker. I'm gonna be able to give it my all. I'm bilingual. That was a good selling point, I remember, because they didn't have anybody else that was bilingual. I'm bilingual, I speak English, and I'm fluent in Spanish, and I'm a great asset. I know that I can work hard. I'm a hard worker. I'm a fast learner, and I'll be able to, really take on the tasks that you give me. So they said, come in, we're going to try you out. We can't guarantee anything, but we can see how it goes. Give you a little bit of time to train, and then we'll decide if we keep you on, or if maybe we're going to hire somebody else to come in. Can't guarantee anything. And I said, okay, fine, let's do it. Sign me up. So my neighbor, the person that was recommending me for the job, she came in with me that day. And she said to me, okay, I'm going to train you. I'm leaving in 2 weeks. That first day, I was not prepared. I didn't even bring a lunch. I had no idea that I was staying. I was just interviewing. So I stayed, and we go through the whole process of some things, how to answer some emails. But I wasn't really familiar with anything else that they were dealing with and everything else that they did as a freight forwarder. So I learned a little bit that first day. I remember I took so many notes that day. I took as many things, anything that she was saying to me, I would write it as fast as I could and write everything. I was always a good student, so I was always good at taking good notes. So that really helped. Took as many notes as I could that day. And I remember going back home that day, that night. I took those notes and I was like, all right, I got to figure out a way how to make sense of this and how to be able to replicate it and come back the next day and be able to do what I learned. So I come in the next day expecting to see her. She had told them that she was leaving effective immediately. So I did not have any more time to train with her. And there was nobody else to train me for that day. For the time being, there was nobody else that was able to train me specifically in what she did. And it was a smaller team, so the resources weren't as great. It was a little bit of a shock. So the person that hired me came in and they said, okay, you know what? We know they haven't been trained fully, but do you think you can handle it? And I said, sure. I was thinking to myself, I'm either gonna sink or swim really badly, but I'll give it a shot. I have nothing to lose. I mean, I'll go. I said, they said, we don't have anybody to train you. We're not gonna be able to give you like a full on training on this yet. And we need somebody to be able to speak to clients, do what we have to do as soon as possible because things have to keep moving. And I said, you know what, let me try. Give me these days, let me try and let's see how I do. I'm going to be honest with you. If I have questions, can I ask you? And they said, yeah, of course. Like, they were very welcoming in that sense. So I was like, okay, great. Let's take this challenge on. I was learning on the job. I had 1 day of training. Everything else had to come as I was approached with the things. That is the point in my life that I learned how to be able to handle customers in the sense that, okay, I don't know. I'm not claiming to know everything. You should, especially working with customer service, you should know everything about your business. But in that particular time, I had no idea, right? My approach was, okay, let me find out what is your issue. I understand it. I might not know the answer, but I'm going to figure it out. So I would do just that. I would write down the things that they would tell me that they need, especially because everything came with shipment numbers, bill of lading numbers, container numbers. There was something to reference, right? So everything came back to that. And I was able to figure out, okay, there's a system to organize this. And then each of these bill of ladings and shipments are going to have particular things that need to be done. And that's how I started to see that, okay, that makes sense. everything that you have to bring in as an import, and we worked with imports and exports. Everything that's an import has to come in, has paperwork. Paperwork has to be processed in a certain way. We need some certain clearances and processes that need to happen with that paperwork, and eventually the result's going to trigger a bunch of other action. I was able to figure that out pretty quickly. And this is the thing that I remember that I was always good at. It was asking questions. I was not afraid to say, hey, can you help me with this? Hey, I don't understand this, but can you explain it? Do you have a minute to explain this to me? And I remember that I was so unfamiliar with the system that they were using at the time. And it was a particular system that had an interface between the government agencies. But for me, coming from zero experience with any kind of information on this, it was like a big adjustment. But I think the number one thing was ask questions. Always ask questions. I think back to it and said, okay, I wasn't afraid to ask questions. How do I do this? How do I approach this? And if somebody wasn't willing to help me, because either one, most of the time they were busy and having to take care of their own stuff, or sometimes they didn't want to, I was able to go and figure it out on my own. And this is back in the days when we didn't have ChatGPT, okay? Now your lives are so much easier. You have no idea. You could just ChatGPT something and it gives you like a decent answer. You still have to do your research. So that was how I accidentally got started in supply chain and logistics, and how that drove my career into the place that I am now.